Hello and welcome to Quackalope. I'm Shira, that's Jan, that's Jesse, and we are doing an overview, first impressions of the box that you just put down on the floor. The Great Wall by
Awaken Realms.
There we go.
Now, if you're just tuning into this video, we have a gameplay going up on the channel close to when this video is going live, potentially probably after this video is going live, so hit the subscribe button down below. It's going to take a little bit of time to edit and process, and I want to give you, the audience, our first impressions of this game. So we're going to do our very best not to spoil anything when it comes to the gameplay.
Hard.
I'm the biggest blabbermouth here.
As far as we're all concerned, all of us won the game. So, the other thing I want to mention is we can track how many people hit the subscribe button on every video we release, and what we've committed to is after we cross a certain amount of subscribers, we're talking like 100 subscribers or so from this video.
Such a small amount. You
I
said
think we had like
100.
I don't understand why it was just 100.
I was going for 1,000.
Listen,
Okay, now that's ambitious.
Listen,
that's maybe.
I'm very
big.
ambitious.
we are going to be checking in on the channel once this video triggers that. We're going to start mixing in extra modules because we played base game straight to begin with. So if you want to see more gameplay on this and the gameplay video, hit that subscribe button down below. Stay tuned. We're covering every single Awaken Realms project that comes along with a whole variety and collection of other board game world stuff. So
we stumbled through this exact same thing in the actual gameplay video, which you should go check out and make fun of us for.
But we did that like an hour in, which is why we're doing this at the front.
Yes.
Enough with that. Jan, can you give us, as quick as possible, an overview of this game, and then let's get down to the brass tacks. Let's start talking about our first impressions.
So the Great Wall is a worker placement, tower defense game where we are all trying our very best to build up the Great Wall in defense of Genghis Khan. We will do that by sending our clerks to different locations in order to gather materials. Those materials will later be able to be spent in a particular section in order to fortify or build said wall. In addition to that, each of us are army generals, and we have two very important things that we have to manage. We have to manage, obviously, our troops and our advisors. These two things are going to be the crux or the meat and potatoes of this game. Your soldiers are going to go out on top of these battle cards right here. Those are going to be horde cards. The idea is that as all players are working together, technically to try and defeat those horde cards, but still aiming to win the game themselves. And as for the advisors, well, advisors are almost like a tableau that every player is going to have access to, which they can buy new cards throughout the entirety of the game in order to bolster not just their own general special ability, but new things that you'll be able to do across the game. The objective of this game is whoever accumulates the most honor before the, the 5th or 6th year of the game?
It depends on the player count. For us, it was 6 years for a 3-player game.
5.5 because we didn't do spring and summer that first round.
Which are the upkeep phases.
And whoever has the most honor at that point will ultimately be the greatest general in this time period.
Yeah, the core nature of this game is going to be action selection from the cards that you're playing that trigger effects for not only yourself, but everyone else at the table. Worker placement for the resource generation and region, and then, like you said, tower defense with you solving this puzzle collectively to gain honor. Now,
as well as a bit of tableau building with your advisors.
I mean, a substantial amount of tableau building with your advisors.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Now, the other core crux of this game is going to be how you actually score those points. Those points are going to come from a variety of different ways, and your tableau is really going to feed into that. So, first off, the natural way is going to be by building the Great Wall itself. You'll score points for every hierarchy or structure you build, as well as other defenses across the front. Next is going to be by placing on and defeating cards. You'll not only be able to get points from the different regions on the cards themselves, but as you defeat a card, you'll be able to gain points by bringing them into your stockpile, and some of those points could be lost if you gain dishonor throughout the course of the game. And then the other way is going to be asymmetrically through your player powers and abilities. For instance, one of my abilities allowed me to gain 1 victory point or 1 honor every time one of my bowmen fired and hit a location on the table.
For me, it was every time that I played one of these cards, I would gain 2 points, and the interesting thing about that is, as we said, you can make your general's power stronger. So if I would have continued adding cards, I would have gained even more victory points. So everybody has that level of flexibility and potential growth throughout the entirety of the game.
So, that is, I think, a brief overview of the Great Wall.
Perfect, so I'm going to start this review off with a bombshell. This is, in my humble opinion, Awaken Realms' best game to date.
Shira, you want to follow that? Because I'm not touching it.
No, I don't want to follow that. Take
Perfect.
it away, Jan.
So let me see if I can give a little bit of context here. I think that Awaken Realms has always published incredibly unique and beautiful experiences, right? And a lot of the times...
Not right. I'm not agreeing with you on this.
Sure. In terms of the gameplay of each of these, I'm talking about Lords of Hellas, I'm talking about The Edge Dawnfall, I'm talking about Ether Fields, Tainted Grail. I have played all of them, and they are all good games, but I believe that they give me more of an experience than a game that I want to come back to. The Great Wall feels, out of all the games that they put out, the most game of them all.
To be fair, the Great Wall is also the very first Euro game, and
Yep.
so you who like tableau building and economic puzzles would find this to be more in your style. I gotta be honest, ISS Vanguard is still the best game I have ever played from
Correction,
Awaken
I
Realms.
have not played ISS Vanguard. That's the one I'm missing.
Tainted
You like
Grail,
flavor text and you like story.
Yes.
That is why ISS Vanguard is going to be for you.
Tainted Grail is still arguably in my top 10, although I don't have a official list or collection yet. And you gotta go the whole way back to the very beginning.
Lords of Hellas.
This War of Mine
Oh, I never played this War of Mine.
set the foundation for everything.
Hey,
So-
I played 80% of the entire library.
So
That's a lot.
I do hear what you're saying. I really thought this was incredibly solid for what it was doing. And I have some criticism of it. We're going to get into that. There'll be a whole section here in probably 10 minutes or so where we're going to talk about the criticism. And I do genuinely have some. But what they've done when it comes to feeling like you're playing a cooperative game, having to negotiate and work together, triggering worker placement zones together, building the wall. Well, that's the thing.
Oh, that word.
What they've done in terms of a Euro, where like I've played another one where it was called the Lowlands, where you had to build a wall
Yep.
to keep the flood from eradicating everyone. And that was a really interesting game with a cool premise. This does that type of system so much better for me.
To an exponential degree, I'm
I
assuming.
like the overwhelming hordes. I like the fact that we were negotiating throughout the course of the game who's going to take defenses. We were reminding everyone that was playing, hey, go to that location because I need those resources, and if you do that, I'll build the wall. And even though they're giving you points, it still kind of benefits you the most to give them those points and to allow them to build the wall and to continue trying to not let things fall apart.
So it sounds like you agree with me in my assertion.
I think this is the best Euro game they've made.
Okay, that's a cop-out.
For me and my tastes, this isn't their number one game. But if I was going to go with the standard that you approached, and I need you to jump in here soon. I know you backed off of Jan's statement. If I was going to go off the standard that you set up, I would agree that this is probably the most likely game to continue returning with a new game.
It's the best game that Awaken Realms has put out.
I can't really add much into this because I'm not so familiar with
Yeah.
the past Awaken Realms. I think I've only played Lord of Hellas.
You were
all the
familiar
ones that you've mentioned.
with a ton of worker placement. You're familiar with a ton of big area control. Like, what's your experience with this as a
isn't an
heavier
area
game?
control.
It's not at all. It's not at all. But I'm saying you're familiar with a lot of heavier games. This is not a new thing for you to approach.
Euros are not my favorite.
Okay.
They usually
Oh.
require an engine and a sequencing.
You're so good at them, though.
I don't really enjoy. I don't like sequencing. I like chaos and I like attacking and destroying. Not so much planning 3 turns in advance what I'm going to be doing.
So dice
or
chuckers.
trying, maybe, or dungeon crawlers, or not even trying to anticipate what other people are playing, trying
Or
to read their
area
minds
control with
and then
drafting.
maybe. So this isn't my favorite genre. So I kind of came in with some low expectations, especially our first game that we played.
Sure.
I was like, the theme doesn't really suit my tastes. The board is massive.
It's ridiculous.
What really pulled me in actually were the pieces, the components. These minis are so well done.
Yeah.
I kept looking at them and looking at the detail. They have, like you were talking about, 3 washes on
Yeah.
them that are making the details stand out.
They're super sweet, but literally.
So-
like, Jesse taught me that they cover it.
taste
in-
well. Yeah.
Well,
can you try it?
The way they
You should-
actually seal the wash
is with a little bit of sugar.
Didn't you eat all the blue
it's
pieces?
not quite. It's not exactly the same as sugar, but it's got this. Well, I actually
Go ahead and try it.
I was
Just
texting
mouthfeel.
Marcin. He said these are actually blueberry coconut.
They don't taste very sweet. I don't know about you.
I might have licked that one already.
So
Did you think I wasn't gonna do it?
yes, I didn't
I
think
have
so.
no problem with the mouthfeel.
I do. Don't put components in your mouth, please.
By the way, she didn't believe the joke,
Well, sure, it was still funny to me.
but it did actually taste a little bit like blueberry coconut, didn't
No,
it?
it didn't.
So back to the conversation, Shira.
Yes.
It sounds like you're much more positive on this than I thought you were going to be. Is that accurate or not really?
Much to my expression at the end of the game might have given away, I came away... So
She was very upset that she won.
this game evoked so much emotion from me that as soon as we finished playing, I was like, okay, I'm going to take a half-hour walk. I literally stormed out of the apartment, took my dog, and went for a walk at 2:30 in the morning, mind you. So that's how much this game evoked emotion with me. A game that can evoke that strong of an emotion that I storm away from the table. This is a really solid game.
Oh my god, I was not expecting that!
So that was
Really?
that was the thought process I kind of came to as I was walking. I was like, this game made me so mad, and now I have to come back at it and play it again and do better and be better. Like it riled me up.
There's a euro.
So it riled me up, and I don't really have many games that do that.
Whoa.
So yes, I knew it was gonna surprise you. My thoughts.
I'm blown away. Okay, so what specifically, like, if you can name a few things, what was it that made this versus most of the Euros that you've already played? Because I know Sender likes them.
So can you list some Euros just so I have what genre to compare it with?
Oh, Terraforming Mars would be considered a Euro. Everdell is technically a Euro, but very abstracted. You have La Granja, you got Agricola, you got Caverna, you have Great Western Trail, Brass Birmingham, Rises of the Ganges.
Most of those. Terraforming Mars would be the one that
Terraforming
she knows
Mars,
and she loves.
and I love Terraforming Mars, and then you mentioned Everdell, which it's
That
not my
is
taste.
very far away from Euro, but it's sort of close-ish a little bit.
Food Chain Magnet?
Yes, that would be considered a Euro. But there are different types of Euros. That's an economical-based Euro.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I don't really have, like I said, this isn't my genre. What made it fun were the powers and the abilities.
Tableau.
I like tableau building. I like...
The tableau is super interesting.
The tableau is really interesting. The fact that it gets more and more expensive and almost like punitive to get what you want and increase the powers. I like powers and abilities. Alex kind of influenced me in that sense.
Every single time that market came out, I felt like there was something worth using.
Yes, and I felt like I got a really good resource generation engine going. Like every time we refreshed, I would get 6 to 8 resources, and you'd get a measly one most of the game. Maybe a half sometimes. So
Yeah.
I liked what I was doing there. That made it fun. I like attacking. That's always great. So those two things I like building also. That's kind of what made it.
So the sequencing,
I don't like sequencing.
the forward planning.
No, I didn't really do much of that. I
Yes, you did.
I took each turn as it came.
Well, I do the same thing.
I don't like
That's
the
why I'm not good at
forward
Euros.
planning. Like there's a game, I think it might be Rurik, where you literally have
That's
to
a Euro.
plan your turns backwards
a little
based
bit.
in anticipation of what the other players are going to be doing.
It's an area control.
She
doesn't like the programming.
Like
of it,
the
though.
programming.
I love the
I
programming
can't
of
stand
Euro.
it. The fact that you want your turn, but you have to do it in line with the other person's turns,
Okay.
and then anticipate what you're doing. So
Okay.
And there's a little bit of that here too.
So Jan, for you and I, some
Yes.
of the things that she liked, for you and I, what are the things that are standing out to you before we get to criticism and critiques? For me, I think that deck over there, which is the special tactics, like triggering abilities, was underutilized by myself. I really, like you said, the cards, these and the generals make this game.
Yeah.
If they released a $30 expansion that was just these and the generals, more of them, I'd buy it. I'd buy it and mix it straight in. These things are so fun.
how do you know that's not part of the expansion waiting for us?
No, there's a bunch of them already.
I know. But I'm just saying, like, that's how much these are worth to me. They're worth the price of, like, walk away from the minis, walk away from the towers, walk away from everything. These cards are so good.
And the reason for that is this game lets you craft your victory condition.
Yeah.
And that is, there's a lot of Euros that I tend to love that give me that flexibility, but very little of them give me that amount of flexibility.
I like the variability, like especially with these little goals that you had going on here.
Yep.
You ignored them for the entire game. Jan focused on them a little bit, and I went heavy on them.
You did.
I got all of my players out of there. I increased all of my stats, which helped
and
me
it's
get
amazing
resources.
because all of us won, even though none of us really.
Yes, all of us magically won.
No, but here's the thing, like, you crafted your own point generation system.
Yes.
I crafted my own, right? You crafted your own.
Yeah.
Everybody did it, and we were all competitive in a certain degree towards that victory condition, right?
Yes.
We made it throughout the game. We crafted our experience, right? And I think that is something that this deck allows us to do because they all synergize so incredibly well with those generals.
Every time that market got refreshed, there was something you were reading through that both, like, I went, oh, and you went, ah, and then Jan went, don't give Jesse that.
Yeah, like there was something for each of us that came out. Every time we refreshed the market, we each could pick a card from there that we would want to add. And if we didn't see a card that we want to add on the very rare occasion, which never happens, you can turn it over to power up your general.
That's true. They're always valuable.
So they're always valuable over there.
Exactly.
The worker placement spots.
The overseers or specifically worker placement?
Both of those. So overseers are going to be you pay a price for resource generation down the road,
and
which is an
income.
interesting premise. I mean, you did really well with that. I didn't utilize it as
really
much.
well is an understatement.
The worker placement zones are an interesting combination of take a risk to maybe lose points. If you're the only person activating them, you get shame, which cancels out these victory cards. You also have the aspect of some of those locations only trigger when 3 to 5 workers are there, and you're rarely the person playing, if ever, the person playing all of those workers down.
So you don't want to be the person playing all those workers down. There was a few
instances where, you know, I know specifically, we got screwed out of some resources or some actions based off of whose decision it was to activate those worker placement zones. I actually really liked the degree of programming that was here, even though it's not your thing. I liked the fact that you're playing through a set of action cards.
Yes.
You're then programming or triggering when those are going to happen based off of turn order. You're then activating the worker placement zones based off of hierarchy, depending on who the person says they want to go first.
Based on that programming.
It's like I'm looking at 3 different programs, micro programs that are running, and I know that I'll probably get to play 2 workers out here and maybe 3 later, and then my card lets me play the rest of them out or move 2 or 3 of them. But then Jan, if he triggers build before he triggers resource, will take the ability from me to be able to actually construct effectively.
And the T element here is crucial in this game. It's rare for me to find Euro where player order is this quintessential.
Not just player order, but honestly, where you are in that stack. I didn't always need to be first.
No, that's what I mean. Player order. T order.
It's actually my least favorite part of this game.
Really?
That T stack. I didn't like how arbitrary it was. I didn't like how it could be changed. I wished it was more on point on where you were on the point track. I didn't like being pushed to the bottom.
Yeah, well,
after I worked very hard to get to the top.
Spend a resource to go there. It costs a little bit, but paying attention to it and paying attention to the programming. But if you're just playing turn by turn, then T order 3 turns down the road doesn't matter quite as much.
That frustrated me at the very end of the game.
Yeah, that was major.
So, and then also, like you said, if you had placed out workers hoping that someone else would fill up the spots, and they didn't, your workers were occupied.
That's exactly what I wanted to say.
That frustrated me.
Which
like,
is
my
neat.
workers were just tied up.
I love that, actually, because it adds to the puzzle. A little
bit of screwage. You can intentionally tie up other people's workers, but I had a lot of workers just tied up for a huge part of the game. But then I got all my workers out, so it wasn't super punitive.
I'm excited for the next time I play because I discovered towards the end there's opportunities to promise you're going to help and then ignore some of these cards and just punish the other players as well. I don't think it really incentivizes just straight screwage.
I don't think this game has screwage in the traditional sense.
But there's definitely opportunity. There's definitely opportunity to get in each other's way for your own benefit, and that's really interesting to me. So let's do hard timestamp here because some people are going to jump right here. Criticism.
Okay, me first. First of all, board ridiculous.
I don't agree.
The combination. So
you don't need to agree. Your opinion's not.
So one of the things. Wait. I have more. So first of all, I didn't get to the things that I liked, but I really liked the combat element here and pretty much everything else that you mentioned. I just forgot about this. However, I don't believe that these two things mesh as well as I would have liked. They felt sometimes as disparate elements and made the entire experience a little bit, just a tiny bit overwrought.
Really?
Right? So I did not feel that synergy between different elements. A lot of times during the gameplay, I felt that we weren't even paying attention to the wall, and maybe just at the end of the command sequence, we said, oh yeah, let's go there because they're going to attack us. The majority of the action happened here in the worker placement. However, I like the combat that happens here. So I would have liked some type of more tie into what was happening in this side, like maybe those hordes coming into and affecting the worker placement spots in some capacity, filling up areas. There weren't enough consequences for that to really apply. The other huge, and this is huge for me in this particular game, playtime is ridiculous.
It's like 2.5.
Yeah. For three players.
For a Euro, though, that's not...
No, it's not.
No, I hear what you're saying. Playtime, I think, is longer than I would prefer it to be.
100%.
I think we all agreed maybe a turn or two shorter. Now, the question
round
is,
or two shorter.
That's what I'm saying. A round or two shorter. Now, the question is, can you get the full experience? I think you can.
You can shorten game end by building all 3 walls.
That's true. You could.
So
Yep.
that's
you could
something
drive.
interesting that I might want to try one game, like just going straight for resources, building the walls, getting your points that way, and while everyone else is trying to build an engine, kind of being like, hey, game
It's
ends.
interesting. Both this and Oath have that system where the game itself is super long, except if you don't make it long.
Yes,
Because
you can have a variable
there's
ending.
other things that trigger it as well. It's not only it's something along the lines of building 2 of the 3 wall sections, having all of your people gone or expired. No, all of the shame tokens gone or expired. Which in this game, I mean, that's
disasterly.
Yeah, that would be ridiculous. We would not even score
or
more than 100.
making it the whole way through 6 years. Now, it would be interesting to see it shortened. I think 5 years at 3 players probably would have.
That would have probably been my sweet spot.
It probably would have felt complete, even if this ramped up a little bit
We
quicker.
could ignore this first spot then.
Or maybe what they meant to say was that this started here. I don't know.
No, that's definitely not what they meant to say. I appreciate you, but
Speaking of,
yeah.
oh my god, I never critique this. Never, almost never, but that rule book was atrocious. That rule book, I never say this ever, that rule book was horrible. There is no images to explain what's going on. There is no references to even how setup goes. There's mention of items and mechanics that have not been addressed anywhere, and there are no examples, visual examples, across the entire thing. It is a wall of text. I felt more clarity.
That's very fitting because it's the Great Wall, so the Great Wall of text.
Touche. Well done.
It's terrible.
I read
That's
the
humor.
entire Law of Oath, and that made more sense than this did. Which is ridiculous because this game and the way that it plays is not that complex.
It would be easier to teach now than the rulebook made it.
100%.
I think we all tried to attack that rule book, and I gave up. I mean, I eventually
But
just
you made
gave
it
up.
2 pages in or something like that. I was like,
did.
nope.
And I was like, no, this, have fun, guys, and call me when you're ready to teach.
Yeah, and it wasn't until you and I sat down and really started going turn by turn with, I think there was probably, 5-6 major questions we had to search for and resolve.
Yes.
And
we had to guess some.
For a Euro, that isn't completely out of the blue.
Yeah.
But I do think the lack of references and images and iconography, especially with the amount of artwork and beautiful components and assets that were available for it, is a real shame. I think it does a disservice, and I think part of that might be the fact that Awaken Realms so far has typically produced games that are designed to be played and experienced as you learn. This is a Euro. No, listen, this is a Euro. This is their first Euro where you sit down and you should know how to run the game by the time you're playing.
I would give you that point if they made me an introductory scenario.
no,
They
I
made
hear.
something
I
where they
understand.
introduced the
But I
mechanics,
think-
but not the rule book itself as the introduction.
I understand, but I think if anywhere that's a weak point, I think it might be due to the fact that this is a new genre for them, and refinement for Euro books is probably different than refinement for Tinkerbell or Etherfields.
It is their first foray, 100%.
We are 100% though going to collect the stuff that we struggled through and make a top 10 questions you might
please,
have.
they need it. They
Well,
really do.
you already have marks through the rulebook. So
I do have a few things marked.
That's going to be on the list. Another good reason to
Somewhere.
subscribe.
Now I've been giving a lot of critiques because I have a ton, but I don't want to completely take control of this. So how about you guys?
You? My critique, I didn't like that T-track. I really did not like that
We're going back at it.
That darn
Circle around.
That darn T-track. I didn't really have too many other complaints. The game time is long. The board feels really long depending on what side of the table you're sitting at.
Sure.
It can feel like I can't read the cards over there. Granted, we're sitting in a straight line, so that is a little challenging sometimes. I didn't like how many spots there were on some of these. It took for a lot of time to fill them up, especially in a 3-player game. I mean, there
That's a
are
good
2
point.
sides of the
This is
board.
interesting.
I'm curious what the other
change
side...
with more
Exactly.
players, though.
Right.
So it
does
might have
change.
not been like tweaked.
It might be worse with more players.
I thought it felt reasonable. Honestly, I thought there were some points where you didn't get the resources, and that was strategic and hurtful. And your strategy incentivized you having one on each location,
Yes.
which did not allow you to engage
Fill
with them
it
as
up.
much as
Yes.
you should.
I
For me-
compromised on that a couple
Advanced
times.
actions also
Yeah.
another thing I really liked
didn't-
about this game.
I didn't really use many advanced actions. I think I only did 1 or 2. How many did
You
you
could
do?
have benefited so much.
I
I
could've.
think maybe one.
My cards, most of the advanced actions require other players playing certain cards on that same round
Yeah.
to trigger it. There's only, I think,
Advanced
only one.
action
You
cards
had,
are going to
Where
be
is it?
cards. Advanced action
Or you
cards are
have
going to be
this.
cards that
Or
allow
you have
you
that.
to utilize a region that hasn't been officially triggered yet, like
Yes.
generating resources without other players there.
Oh my gosh. See, we skipped over this. The drafting in this game, or the personal drafting that you go through, the turmoil of deciding the cards. I'm going out of order. I just wanted to say this because I'll forget.
What drafting?
The command cards. And the way that you would decide to push the command cards forward or get them back, your action selection, your command prompt.
Your action selection at the very start of the game.
That is fantastic in this game. But either way, back to
Oh,
the critiques.
Yeah.
Yeah, so back to the
Draft?
critiques.
That's not drafting.
So some of the critiques I have, I don't disagree with game time. I don't agree with you as hard, but I think it probably did run a little bit longer. I think the more efficient we get with the game, the
Yes.
quicker that play will be. But that's true with a lot of games, and it's
Yeah.
usually that first experience or two that sets the pace for how often you get back
I'm
to the
saying
table.
this game takes a long time.
Yeah.
I'm not saying us because of analysis paralysis.
No, I hear
This game.
I hear victory points are a little cryptic
Sure.
in some areas. I don't know that that's uncommon with a Euro, but the fact that I can't convert straight resources to victory points, most Euros allow me to be and generate victory points if I've been as efficient as possible. And this game didn't quite give me that. Instead, it said be as efficient as possible and then find a pathway to convert that efficiency to scoring. Like spawn and fire arrows, like generate resources so you can build and crush, like attack and take out cards, but none of those rewarded just straight efficiency.
Another thing that, when you said that, made me think of the iconography and the text on some
You
of the
had a problem
cards.
with it. I didn't.
I didn't like the iconography. It didn't feel it was as clear as it could have been.
I had no
kept
problem with the iconography.
For our first game, I kept the tablet with a picture of the rule
Sure.
book so that I could refer to it. And then grammatically, it didn't always make sense.
I understand that you had a complaint with that, and you had a complaint with that from the very beginning.
Yes.
I honestly, by the time we were up and running, never had a question when I was reading.
There's a
get-
few icons that are a little bit similar. Like to the point where you can, like, we did not understand the difference between Overseer
Half the
and
game,
all
you
materials.
didn't know which soldier you weren't allowed to use
Yeah.
on some of the cards.
Well, that's more due to the fact iconography and text might be small for the cards because I can't interpret sitting
that
here
is, you were not allowed
for
to
such a large
attack
board?
with archer.
with an archer.
And
Yes.
you just thought, oh, that was a
Well,
red
sure.
little squiggle.
So to be fair, that right there, that indication right there is small enough that I can't read it very efficiently. So that's fair.
And speaking, because I feel this is all kind of in the same theme, this game feels opaque in a lot of ways. For all the amount of space that is on this board, there's not enough clarification as to what things do. And there is a extreme lack of good player aids in this one, and those were so clutch and
the
necessary.
only player aids are going to be here.
And those were not the ones that I would have liked to see.
Sure.
For example, there should have been at some point on the board itself the breakdown of how we scored this, not on the back of the rule book, not as memorization. So
Yes.
it's a little bit difficult to kind of get into.
Kind of going through the season sequence. Like, that would have been helpful
Oh,
because
that's
we
a
just
big
referred
one.
to the back of the rulebook, which
Every
is like
time.
a quick referral, but it's kind of a big rulebook to have
Should
on
have
the
just
table all the time.
Been somewhere. Look
Yeah.
how big this thing is.
The other thing that I have a criticism of, and it's not a criticism in the nature of how it plays, it's a criticism of like projecting forward. How is it going to play out? We're only 2 experiences into the game so far, but so far I've seen no incentive to take back your action cards if other players aren't. You start escalating points
Yep.
so heavily with these. I'm curious, because maybe there's that one moment where you can take back a card that allows you to trigger enough resources or take advantage of something. I'm curious. But
think-
right now, every single one of these is played and continues to be played.
But I think that's what they're doing. The entire point of this deck is programming from the very first turn.
I agree.
Which makes it
I
very
agree, but
like
that
a
makes it
top
hard
tier-
for anyone new to get into this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. So reclaiming is a huge, huge detriment to whoever does it. You need to know how to play those
But
cards.
it's such a core mechanic. I would have liked to see these more powerful so that the struggle between reclaiming and not reclaiming was a little bit heightened. Right now, and maybe it gets that way once you know the game inside and out and you've really delved in, right now, for that first game experience, I was having so much fun with my tableau. I didn't really care about the card I played that much.
Jan
I
had
could
an
just swap
ability that he could swap it, and he used it.
So
That's
you
what I
didn't-
meant by
you didn't
drafting,
even- You
by
didn't
the
even
way.
have to consider getting them back.
Nope.
Right, he didn't have to consider it. He still got the points, which I wonder, because as you start to realize what other players have played, you realize you lose your chance at doing advanced
You could
actions.
min-max it. You could min-max
So
it.
there is that element to it.
And bluffing. There's a little bit of bluffing in this game too. There's a little bit of anticipation
be.
as well.
It could
The
be.
command cards all play off of each other, so you have to know when the crucial time for other players is going to happen in order for you
Or
to
just
capitalize on
search
that.
through the entire deck and see what everyone else has played in the very last turn.
That wasn't intentional, and also I didn't capitalize on it either.
So I'm really excited to check out 2 other elements of this game. I'm really excited to play this with expansions included.
Yes.
like the siege elements.
Yes, because it's going to add some tactical elements to the board. Like we can play with Genghis Khan, which I believe is a mechanic that's a little bit more aggressive when it comes like
Yeah,
floating
oh
down.
my gosh,
You can
yes,
play with
which I want.
siege engines, which gives you another way to build defenses and tactically gain victory points. And you have more of these asymmetric player powers and tableau building. I'm also interested in cooperative mode. I don't know how it'll function. I know you don't like cooperative games, but it has an interesting puzzle. And if they can ramp this to a way where it feels like you're like falling apart, it could be really fun.
Well, one of the things that we went
You
through.
both liked the cooperative cards that you accidentally
Exactly.
got dealt through your
Exactly.
hands. You both found those really interesting.
Because they're super powerful.
But in cooperative modes, only everyone wins or no one wins.
Yes.
Yes, well, some people don't mind that. So I hear that you don't like it. So all that being said, positives, highs, lows. We all only have 2 experiences with this
Yes.
game.
Yep.
Jan learned and taught. Shira gave up on the rule book. I sat and
Passively
struggled with
and
it
waited.
for a while. No, I mean Jan and I sat down and learned it together. We butted heads. A
Not
bit.
the best teaching, unfortunately, but once I play it, much better.
So take our final thoughts with a little bit of grain of salt. I mean, take all our thoughts with a little bit of a grain of salt.
Yeah,
Because,
ever on this entire channel.
Well, because the context is first experiences. Context
Yep.
is we've played this game realistically twice, once. What are we thinking? Where does this sit right now? Are we excited to table it again? Are we looking forward to more plays? I've already kind of answered that question. I really am. I'm excited to mix in the extra
Give
stuff.
us a point.
What do you rank?
Yes. Give us some.
I asked
numbers.
you first.
All right,
What
so
are you ranking
so
it if
so
you're
we're gonna
excited?
rank
Ducks
it.
first.
We've been going through Board Game Co's ranking system because
Yes.
Quackalope doesn't have a ranking system.
And
That
we're
makes
evolving
sense
our
to
own.
Humans. It makes
Listen.
sense to ducks.
So it's a 5-point ranking system.
Or alcoholics that
One,
love bourbon.
1 is a straight bad game. 2 is a good game that you're not excited to play. It's not right for you. 3 is a really solid
It's a good game.
It's a very, very good game, but you don't need to own it. Like
You might own some threes.
you might own some 3s. You're not too worried about it. 4 is a great game.
Yes.
Just straight up great game, but not everyone in your game group needs to play it with you. 5, according to Alex, he's upset or disappointed or adjusts his opinion of you if you don't like
the
a
game.
5.
And-
it doesn't mean it's perfect. It does mean it's the best version of that for you.
And we are adding a little bit of nuance in there, and that is going to be decimal systems. I feel that whole numbers don't really tell an
Either
entire
way,
story.
all right.
So we added
let's
that
dig
in.
in. Jan, where are you?
We asked you
No,
first.
ducks.
Okay.
You tried to push that off.
So I would set right now at like a 4.2. This is going to be
That's exactly what I thought you'd give it.
This
That's
is gonna be-
exactly what
This
I
is
thought
going to
you'd
be a
give
4 out of 5 to me, with the opportunity to grow with experience with players around the table. I think the game will get better. The more I'm aware of it, the more I know how it flows, and the quicker the playtime can be. I don't know that it ever hits a 5 out of 5 for me. I think there's other Euros that compete a little bit farther up on that hierarchy, and just tabling it is going to be more difficult, and usually those don't get off my shelf as much. But if Alex, if Shira were excited to sit down and play, if the audience wanted more gameplay videos, I would not only be excited to do so, I'd have fun doing so.
Okay.
It is genuinely...
Oh, me next.
This is genuinely coming from Awaken Realms. I think this is a standout for this division of games. And the next time they bring a Euro to the table, the next time they're bringing something like this would give me confidence in backing what they're iterating on next. Because what we've seen through story is they've done better and better and better with everything they've put out. ISS Vanguard, the best game they've made to date.
Etherfields?
ISS Vanguard is the best game they've made to date.
Okay, what's that? Behind the wall. It's a rating coming out of nowhere, 3.8. I give this game a 3.8.
So a 4, equivalently.
A 4, a potential 4 with more plays.
So a 4.
No, it's not a 4. It's
Our
not a
decimal
4.
system's a mess.
I feel, no, well, it's important. I
Ratings.
think I like it. I feel that there's too many elements here that don't feel that are coalescing well enough. And for a person that enjoys Euros regularly, I love streamlining and I love elegance. I don't necessarily need that in the Great Wall, but that certain key mechanics in the game don't tie into each other as proactively as I would have wanted, as that don't have enough consequences with each other, that is an issue for me. And that is what's keeping this from being like the great game that I would want to show everybody. With that said, I think I stand by what I said. Of all the games I played of Awaken Realms, this is their best one yet. Okay, those are my thoughts. I don't know where I told you.
You like being the last person to
I
speak.
do like being the last
which is
person to
dangerous
speak.
sometimes.
Bum, bum, bum.
I'm going to rank this a 3.2.
I was thinking it was going to be around there.
Lowest.
But what about your whole thing at the very beginning where you're like, if a game can make me feel all those things,
So
it has to be great.
It has the potential to grow. However, I do threes based on it's a good game, but I won't ask to play it. I'm happy to play it if someone else wants to, and I'll have fun. I'll be happy to play this. I'm not going to ask this for this game, and I'm not going to probably own it. Fours I really own, and fives are just fantastic. So yeah, this is a 3.2. It has the potential to grow as we play it more and more, as the analysis paralysis decreases, as we get the rules down pat, as we add in expansions.
And no take-backsies.
And no take-backsies. It's huge. So it has the potential to grow.
How much can it grow?
I think it can get up to a 4.
Also, so basically, we think we could get to a 4.
Yeah.
Jesse is already there.
I think it's a solid 4. I think this is a great game. Whether or not it's perfect or right for every single person, clearly no. But I think the people that are expecting, like, know what they're expecting from it, that have listened to this and are still excited about it,
Right.
I think they're going to be thrilled.
Yes. I do think there are going to be people who really fall in love with this game.
Also, I'm like super impressed with us that we have like major games that have passed through this table, and not once we've given out a 5. That's pretty impressive.
Oh, I've given out some 5s.
I've given out some 5s.
She literally
On
filmed-
this table, with us three playing together.
Scarface?
She gave Scarface a 5.
I want to give Scarface a 5.
I gave Scarface a 5.
Scarface is a great game. I just didn't give it a
I'm
5.
just saying, I think that was like one of the first ones we did on this table, all three of us together.
Okay,
And I was like,
not
5
that
out of 5.
many 5s. Not that many 5s. Like I think we did open this. It's huge.
Oh yeah. that's
Check
gonna
that
be-
out
that's
too,
gonna be
by
a
the
good
way.
review. With all that being said, thanks so much for watching. Check out the gameplay. Hopefully you've enjoyed this content. If you have, like I said, don't subscribe at this point. I mean, if you haven't now, just why bother?
Like,
We'll
it's
see you next time.
embarrassing, really.
Thanks so much.